What's up, Shelf Addicts? Welcome back to the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Today on Book Chat, we are continuing our reread of the Mercy Thompson series written by Patricia Briggs. This episode, we are covering Book 3, Iron Kissed. Stay tuned. Today's episode is sponsored in part by audiobooks.com. Audiobooks.com now has 175,000 titles and 1.2 million podcasts. New customers get 3 free audiobooks comprised of 1 premium credit and 2 VIP titles. Use our promo code SHELFADDICTION, spelled as one word, when you sign up at audiobooks.com. Again, our promo code is SHELFADDICTION. Hey everyone, I'm your host, Tamara Ford, and welcome to Book Chat here on the Shelf Addiction Podcast. Participate in this discussion by joining the Facebook group Shelf Addiction Official. I hope to hear your thoughts on today's topic. You can always find me and Casey on Twitter and Instagram. The links for everything I've mentioned are below in the show notes. If you enjoyed today's episode, please support this podcast by sharing it with some book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. That would really help me out, and I appreciate you for doing so. The uncut video version of this podcast is available now on Patreon. Join us there for exclusive videos, including after shows and more. So if you're interested in that at all, you'll need to come on over to Patreon and sign up. Without further ado, let's get started. We've got a lot to talk about today, so we are going to jump right to it. Joining me is feature co-host Casey from Heart Full of Ink. Welcome back, Casey.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
Yay! This should be a fun conversation.
Yes. It'll be a great conversation.
Yeah, I think so. So today we are doing another installment of our reread of the Mercy Thompson series. That is a mouthful. Mm-hmm. So today we are doing book 3, Iron Kissed, and it was written by Patricia Briggs, published January 2nd, 2008 by Ace and Penguin Audio. The paperback is 287 pages. The audiobook is 9 hours and 11 minutes. It was narrated by Lorelei King. Casey, would you please read the synopsis?
Mechanic Mercy Thompson can shift her shape, but not her loyalty. When her former boss and mentor is arrested for murder and left to rot behind bars by his own kind, it's up to Mercy to clear his name, whether he wants her to or not. Mercy's loyalty is under pressure from other directions too. Werewolves are not known for their patience, and if Mercy can't decide between the two she cares for, Sam and Adam may take the choice for her, or may make the choice for her.
All right. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Okay, so first off, there are trigger warnings in this book. Mm-hmm. And I was like, fuck, I forgot about this part. When I got to it, I'm like, oh, I hate this. I hate it. Mm-hmm. I hate it so bad. It's really bad. So trigger warnings for rape and emotional abuse and
drugging. He's drugging her with magical fae stuff, but it's still drugging. And
it's drugging. And yikes.
Yeah, it's rough.
It's a rough ride. Like where I feel like you've been dragged down a gravel road. Like, oh my God. It's tough to read.
It is.
Okay, where should we start? There's so much. There's so much.
Well, let's start with the world building. This is the first time, or this book really focuses on the Fae, which we have heard about before, but we never really learned like too much about them. And so Mercy is invited to go explore their reservation, and she uncovers a lot of secrets that she was not supposed to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's in there. So Z, the mechanic, who is also a like metal worker, he invites her to like help identify someone because she owes them a favor. They made he loaned her the charms to kill the vamps in the last book. The whole little set. It was a 3-pack set of charms that she got. And then she used it to kill another vampire that wasn't originally
part of the deal.
Right. So because of this, hey, you owe us a favor. I need you to go and sniff out these homes and tell us if you smell the same person or who you smell in these homes. So she goes and she does her duty. But along the way, she encounters like a lot of weird face stuff that people aren't supposed to be seeing.
Nope. She sees under their glamour. So she realizes that the cookie cutter houses that are presented to the world are not what these fae are living in. They are living in bogs and swamps and, then she finds her way into the Underhill, which is the fae realm, and, she meets a Selkie? Was he a Selkie or something else? And he's like, who are you? You're not...
What are you doing here?
I think I want to eat you. You look like a tasty treat.
Yeah. And then, of course, Z comes in. Hey, she's under my protection. Back away. Hey, what are you doing? But we should say while she's investigating, she is in her coyote form. So she can smell really well.
Yes.
So she's not walking around in her human form, but still it's dangerous. She kind of just walks right in where she's not supposed to be naturally.
Even though Z warned her as they were driving up, he was like, don't go looking for danger. Just use your nose to find people or the sense of who's been in these houses. Like, don't look under the glamour. Don't go anywhere. What does Mercy do? She goes.
It does exactly
that. Yeah.
Yes. And we are first introduced to a new fae, which Mercy likes to call Yo-Yo Girl. I'm like, oh, this lady. God. Yeah, she's an interesting, creepy looking type of girl, just smacking on gum.
Gum and the yo-yo. Creepy child.
Like, okay, we don't know what she does exactly, or who she is exactly. Well, not yet.
Not yet.
But very interesting.
But we'll find out
she leaves
more.
there.
Yes.
Yeah. So she leaves there, and she thinks it's good, right? We're good.
Well, she found the person who was at all of the places, which was the human guard at the reservation gate, I guess. And she tells Z, knowing full well that Z and Uncle Mike will probably go kill this man. But he probably murdered all of these fae, so is it worth it? And
no.
She doesn't know what to do, but she just leaves. She's like, it's their problem now. I fulfilled my bargain or my end of the deal. It's done. It's over. It's not over. It's never over for Mercy.
Never over. It's never over.
Poor Mercy. It's not even her fault.
No. She didn't do anything exactly.
No, she just keeps owing people favors, and these favors blow up in her face.
I know. I would never, ever... Well, she needs the favor when she asked for it.
She did. She did.
But the repayment of these favors is always, I feel like...
way too much.
Really bad.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And each favor is getting her in more deep shit. Like...
Yes. Yeah. So, Z and Uncle Mike go to confront this human killer, which should just be a cakewalk. But he's already been murdered. And the police show up and find Z covered in this man's blood, kneeling over the dead body. And so they arrest him and they're like, it's done. We found our killer. Z's going to jail. Yes. And the Fae have been told by the Grey Lords that they just have to let it go because they don't want any more humans to be upset or suspicious.
Right. So instead of, letting sleeping dogs lie, as they say, Uncle Mike goes and says, hey, Mercy, so this happened. And can you get a lawyer? I can pay for it. And this starts her on this journey of trying to prove that Z didn't do it and find who did it. Even though technically she wasn't asked to do that.
She was told, at some point, she is told very specifically not to do it.
Yes.
And she's like, screw you, I'm doing it anyway.
I'm doing it anyway, yes.
I love Z. I'm going to help him. I'm going to do everything for him. And... yeah.
But it's like kind of like Uncle Mike knew what he was doing.
And Samuel calls him out on it. He's like,
he does.
You knew exactly what you were saying when you told her not to do this. You knew she was going to do it. Don't try to play dumb.
Yeah, so don't come in here acting all like, oh my God, what are you doing? Don't be daft. You know what you did.
You know exactly what you did.
Oh my gosh. So the story starts to get a little convoluted as far as like this whole, what was the name of the society again?
Bright Futures.
Bright Futures. Oh, it sounds like a cult. It does.
It very much read like a cult, very much an evangelical hate group. It's these people who are like, protect the children. We can't have Fae in our world. We must hurt them all or kill them or, bigots. Racist, awful bigots. That's exactly what they are, and that's what their group is.
Yes. So I guess along the way, she's, I guess, what is she, hanging out with Sam just while he's playing his guitar and singing his songs. And she comes across this guy, Tim, who, I guess starts to make comments on his mispronunciations of some words and some other things. And then she just has a little convo with him, and
she gets to be nerdy. She gets to dust off her old history degree from college that she never gets to use as a mechanic. And she gets to debate the nuances of the King Arthur legends. And I can understand how somebody who loves that can get really passionate and involved and in a deep conversation with somebody and not realize that the other person is interpreting it as flirty. Because, as women, if we give a man an ounce of attention with an ounce of passion in our voice, he's, ready to pull out the wedding rings and walk down the aisle. And we're like, no, we were just talking about something we liked. This was not flirting. This was not a proposal. This was just talking about King Arthur.
And I mean, honestly, I was kind of surprised that it was taken that way, but I'm like, well, they're wolves, and of course they automatically assume you're flirting, and they're so mine, because Samuel says, when you flirt with him, then she's like, I'm not flirting. I'm like, okay, look, I could talk about podcasts with some people and it's a real entertaining conversation, but someone else will be bored to tears. And it's the same with history and those topics they were talking about. So why can't they just be having a good conversation and not be flirting?
A weak little man who never gets attention. He never gets to be the best, which is his whole issue. That's why he kills his best friend, because his best friend was the alpha of the group. He's jealous. He's weak.
Yes.
He's like, I don't get attention from pretty girls. I want women to like me. And here's this woman who's, conversing with him and looking him in his eye. And he's all of a sudden like, oh my God, it's my soulmate. Yeah. Everything is fantastic. And I have met so many of those men in real life, and it is disgusting and disturbing. And no, I just want to have a conversation with you. A conversation does not mean flirting. Yeah, no. Men are the worst.
At first, they can be, definitely. But at first, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal because, she's able to kind of just slither out of it. And, it seems like it's done.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Samuel comes over at the end of the conversation and, has to kiss her to mark his territory or whatever werewolves do. And Mercy's like, yeah, I'm dating Samuel. I'm sorry. I just got carried away in our conversation. And so, yeah. But then she sees him again. I
still have a problem with that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I just do. I'm like, why I gotta explain myself to you? I'm not look, she wasn't touching him.
Nope.
She wasn't leaning into him. She wasn't doing any of that. She don't owe him shit.
She does not. And it's that weak, fragile masculinity where a man's like, oh my goodness, a woman is paying attention to me. Now she must be mine.
She must want me.
She must want me. It must be fate. It's
right.
Weak, fragile male masculinity, and he just gets worse and worse and worse as the book goes on. And he deserves every piece of torture that he gets at the end. He deserves worse than that. But
100%.
But no, like it's Mercy did nothing wrong ever talking to him.
No.
She was acting like a friend. She was acting like a history nerd. She was acting, like a normal person, just trying to have a conversation with somebody about a topic that you both understand.
And he turns into like stalker status virtually immediately.
Mm-hmm. So he invites her to his Bright Futures group, and she's like, I wonder if any of them killed O'Donnell, because O'Donnell was part of this group and O'Donnell was murdered. And also, she needs to prove that Z is innocent.
She's like, let's see what's going on here. So she does go to the house and she meets the little group. And generally speaking, I think she thinks they're pretty harmless overall. And she meets another Fae or someone who has Fae blood. She's not really sure exactly what he is or... but she can smell something.
Yes.
But she carries on. She has that little evening and she leaves. But, of course, it's not just leaving.
No. Tim corners her by his car. Or by her car.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, well, so you're not dating Samuel anymore. Why don't you come hang out with me? Come to my house for dinner. It'll just be the two of us.
That's right. She's like, oh, no. She just kind of agrees at that moment and thinks she's just going to tell him no later.
Well, she's not even really sure why she agrees, which we learn later. He's wearing a magic Fae ring and he's touching her with the ring. So he's convincing her to do what he wants because of this magic Fae ring. Even though in her head, she's like, well, it would make Adam mad. And I don't want to make Adam mad. I don't want to hurt him. Because being alone with another man in his house is a date. I don't want to do that to Adam.
Yeah. So, but later she does say, well, I'll just tell him as she drives off. I think she's driving away and she's thinking about it. Like, oh, I'll just make up an excuse basically or something like that.
But then we get to the good part. The really, the most exciting part of this book, I would say.
Action-packed.
Action-packed.
Action-packed. So, of course, the Fae is, like, following her in his car. And she's, like, thinking, which way should I go? What should I do? Like, do I bring us to Adam's house or not? Where do, she has all these things. And she's just driving around trying to, like, maybe he'll turn. Maybe he won't, And before you know it...
Her car dies.
Like, perfect timing.
Because Fae magic. Why? He was putting seawater magically into her engine, and it, of course, killed the engine because...
It dies. He messed her car up, like, in a permanent way.
Yes.
But before you know it, she's out the car, turning into a coyote, and, like, taking off, basically. Like, the guy is chasing... He is on her ass, like, chasing her.
He's this big, scary Fae... horse silky monster thing.
Yeah, like some combo of things. I couldn't even really visualize. I'm like, what is he exactly? I just kind of pictured this
tall horse, like covered in seaweed, because he had the hooves that she could hear clomping around. There was too much seaweed to really see his body.
Yes.
He was tall, like 8 feet, I think she said at one point. Like he was a big beastie.
Big monster. And she's running. And then she's like, oh, I will go to Adam's and I feel bad, but what am I going to do? This thing is on my ass. So the wolves are outside looking like, what's going on?
Daryl comes out with a gun.
Yes, Daryl's in human form.
Ben and Honey and a few others are changing.
Yes.
And they're trying to attack this thing. It's not working. It's hurting them. It was one of the best fight scenes I think we've had so far in the first 3 books.
It was intense. Yeah, the wolves just couldn't take him down just like that. And then somehow, I can't remember exactly how he got in the water, but Adam, like, gets in the water.
Well, Adam was holding on to his back and, like, trying to bite the neck. And he walked into the water with Adam. Because he realized, Honey's husband, Peter, comes out with a sword, and he's trying to get under the seaweed and couldn't quite get to the body. But the Fae knew that eventually, like, they would get him. And so with Adam still biting his back, he just walks into the water.
Okay.
And werewolves drown because they're very dense and they can't swim.
Yeah.
And so Adam being in the water scares the living shit out of Mercy. And she's ready to just go jump in the water. But thankfully, Peter's right there and he drags Adam out.
Peter to the rescue.
I'm like, woohoo!
He gets his little scene.
This is the first time we've really seen Peter. We've talked about him before, but we've mostly know Honey. And her husband is very, very submissive. But it turns out he's really old. He's a
badass, though. He's old, and he's a badass. Like, he was in, I can't remember.
The Revolutionary War.
The Revolutionary War. And they were like, oh, well, I learned guns. You know, they taught us how to shoot guns and stuff. But our main weapon was a sword.
So he's
nice.
What, almost 300 years old?
Oh, he's old. And, you know, it's like, I think Mercy was taken aback by that.
Because she's like, you don't often meet werewolves this old. Charles is only like 200 years old.
Yeah. And he goes, oh, you know, non-dominant wolves live a long time because they're not fighting people. Exactly. They're not fighting to the death. You know, he's like, I'm cool. Do what you do. I'm just going to sit here and get old, you know?
And that made me really appreciate him. And I know Honey is much more dominant, but I like that she's with him and like they have that strong bond.
Yeah, you can tell there's caring between them. Like, it's clear.
Oh, for sure.
So, yeah, which shows, you know, alpha and a beta can be together very easily. It's fine.
Yes,
you don't have to have two alphas. Right. So, I like that. And of course, you know, in the midst of all of that, Ben flies through a plate glass window.
Yes. Cutting up Mercy because she's right there getting glass dropped on her.
Yeah.
So after the fight, she has to get in the shower and try and clean off all the glass. And one of the sweetest, most romantic scenes happens.
I know. I think I marked it. Let me see.
Adam puts on some shoes and some jeans and walks into the shower and just combs the glass out of her hair and helps wash all the blood off of her.
He's so nice.
So nice. Adam is just the sweetest, and I love him.
He didn't even yell at her or anything.
Why would he? He's like, you need to come to me when you need protection. I want to protect you.
I know, and but she was expecting it. Like, she was like, she automatically, I think, expects the worst. Like, you know, she's like, I'm sorry I brought them here. She's like apologizing and berating stuff. Herself. And he's like, what? Yeah, he's like, what are you? It's fine, you know, like, of course you came here. Like,
yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. So, you're my mate. Like, you need to be here.
Right.
We need to protect each other, and protecting Mercy is what he wants to do. And so, then he sits there and puts her on the counter and cleans her feet because they're covered in little cuts. And it was just so cute. Oh, my God.
It was. But before that, though, we missed something. Wasn't it before that where Jesse gets like beat up, or did that happen after that?
Much earlier in the book.
Okay, so alongside this story we're telling, so poor Jesse gets basically bullied and jumped
and beaten
by
up.
These. Yes, but she gave as good as she got.
Oh yeah, no, yeah,
she gave them a couple. They were hurt, and you know, she said she didn't even go as hard as she could have because she didn't think they were actually gonna like
hurt her.
Do anything like that, but she's like, oh, they'll never get my ass again, basically. And of course, old boy from the shop comes to the rescue.
Gabriel.
What's his name? Gabriel. Oh, she loves Gabriel.
She is
singing Gabriel's praises.
Yes. I mean, he heard the fight, he jumped the fence, he scared the guys off. He was going to chase them down, but, you know, he stopped to help her. He brings
her home instead, yes. And of course, this was actually really notable as well to me because when he brings her home, like, of course, everyone's losing their shit because Adam is pissed the fuck off.
Adam is about to lose it. He does not have control.
No.
He's still mostly human, but also, like, kind of changing. His eyes are changing. His voice is changing. Like, somebody hurt his baby. He's going to kill some people.
Yeah, and of course, I think it was Ben who called Mercy and was like, get over here now. get over here. Click, get over here. She comes in and she's like, okay,
yes.
let me try to figure this out. And she does a good job of like distracting him and kind of like, you know, getting Jesse to like jump in the shower.
With her clothes
she's
still
like,
on, so he
with
can't
her clothes
still
on
get
before,
the scent.
like, hurry before your dad figures out what we're doing. She leaves the bathroom and he's like, clothes. And she's like, they were dirty.
Oops, she's all in the shower. Everything is wet. You can't find it.
He's like, damn it, basically. Like, but she does it. She calms him down. She takes care of Jesse. The pack is relieved that she was able to, you know, because he was about to lose his mind.
He was losing his
Jesse,
mind, and it was very valid. Yeah. Like, somebody hurt his baby, and, you know, he's the alpha. He's so protective of everybody, and somebody beat up his child. Yeah, heads are gonna roll. So
I know
the fact that Mercy
but it was
can
important
walk
that
in,
he know, and stop him, because she's right though. Killing some kids would not have been the answer. That's not the answer.
No.
So we're gonna stop this right now. Although she knew who it was, she's like, "Oh, I know that. I know one of the person's smell."
Jesse, because she had a clear head, and so she got the scent, and she figured it out. And then, she's like, "Hurry, Jesse, get in the water so your dad can't smell you, because he probably hasn't thought about it yet."
Hurry up before he figures out what we're doing. So all that drama, it's like it's a nonstop drama for Mercy.
I really liked it because it shows just how much Mercy understands Adam and how she can, not work around him, but work with him to calm him down, to get him to think clearly and not, fly off the cuff and go murder some teenagers, because even though they deserve it, it would be really bad for everybody involved if he murdered teenagers. And she does take care of it at the very end. She goes after the kids and, scares them shitless because she's Mercy. And she's like, yeah, we can scare them. We're not going to kill them, but we're going to teach them that, no, it's not okay to jump Jesse. The other part of that scene when Jesse's in the shower is that Honey comes in and talks to Mercy and explains what the mate bond really, really means in a way that nobody has explained to her. So,
right. Which is odd because she was raised with wolves, but no one had really gave it to her in nuts and bolts like Honey did. Like, look here, this is why this is happening.
Yes.
So
we heard, as early as book 1 that Adam has claimed Mercy as his mate, and they always said it was just for protection so the wolves won't eat a coyote. And she just kind of laughs it off, thinks it's annoying, teases Adam, puts out her car in her field and takes off 3 wheels and, annoys him. But no, Honey explains that there's an actual mate bond there, and that it is a weakness in their pack that Adam is dealing with, and that he is protecting from the rest of the pack, but it's always putting him and his wolf on edge because there's that weak spot that hasn't been filled. And Mercy's like, what are you talking about? What does this mean? Why is this happening?
Right. And what it means is, essentially, Honey's like, make a choice. Either you choose Sam and you be on your way and we'll forget you. You know what I mean? Or you accept the bond.
And you choose Adam.
Like, stop bullshitting. Right. So you have to pick. Time is running thin, literally, because it's making the pack weak. It's making us weaker. So she's like, oh, well.
Like, oh, didn't know that. Gotta pick somebody.
Yeah, I guess I need to figure this out. So this was before she and Samuel finally realized that they're family.
Same night, I think, because she has that look, and then later he's like, "You were flirting with him, and I just don't care, but I love you."
Yeah, it was after he kissed her. Yes. Like, he open mouth kissed her and all of that, and then later, like, well, you know what? I don't think I love you.
It's
not like
I
that.
love you, but I'm not jealous.
Yeah.
I don't care that you're flirting with this puny little human man.
Right. So it's strange. It's like, I guess maybe he only felt some competition because it was another alpha dominant person, maybe. Mm-hmm. Because he realizes, and, I wish that, I think Mercy did, but I feel like Mercy got an easy out. The author gave her an easier out than her actually having to say, I don't want you, Sam. We're friends. He gave it to her first.
He did.
And she was like, oh, thank God.
Yes.
So it was her opening to say how she felt as well, which I'm not really mad about, but I did note that Mercy did not make that choice first. It was
she
given
had
to
made
her.
It in her head. Like she had decided that she couldn't be with Samuel because Samuel would coddle her and protect her, and she could never truly be herself with him. So in her head, she had made it, but she didn't say it out loud because she didn't want to give him up just yet. She's like, I still care about him and I still want him around. And if I say this to him, he's already kind of suicidal. I might push him off the edge. And, she's too loyal to a fault.
Yeah, I mean, loyal to the point where, I do kind of wonder in an alternate version, like, how long would she have let that go if Samuel hadn't said something to her, knowing
maybe like a week or two?
You are causing hurt, I
don't think she would have waited too much longer, honestly. Like, once she made her decision, it would have taken her a few days to, like, find the right time to talk to Samuel, maybe make him, like, a shit ton of cookies, maybe some rabbit stew or something. I don't know. Like, she would have done it in her own time. But I see what you're saying, that, Samuel gave her that out. She didn't have to make that choice and say it out loud. But Samuel immediately ran over to Adam's house and told him everything.
And she's like, hey, do not go over there and tell him I'm his or whatever. And he's like, hey, this is between the two of us. You stay out of it. He leaves. I'm like, dang, he gonna go right over there and tell him I'm not in the race anymore. So,
which I thought was nice of him. He could have teased Adam a little bit longer, but he was the bigger man. He's like, nope, it's done. I'm not going to keep hurting you. I'm moving on.
Because he's an old wolf. He knows what's happening. He is aware of the things that Mercy wasn't.
Yes.
So he's like, why would let me just take care of this. It's decided. So, okay, let's take a quick break and then we will continue sharing what's happening and our thoughts on it. So be sure to listen to the commercials. By listening to those, you are supporting the podcast. Yay! And don't forget to check out the book review journal and notebook available on Amazon right now. The links are in the show notes. Come right back. Today's episode is brought to you by the Shelf Addiction merch store. Check out all the bookish t-shirts, notebooks, mugs, and more. Don't miss out on these original designs, perfect for any book nerd. Support the podcast and visit shelfaddiction.com/merch and pick up your next favorite bookish item. All right, guys, we're back. We're going to continue on. Casey, remind us where we left off.
So we were just talking about how Samuel went to Adam and said, I'm done. I'm out of the race. You can have her.
That night, she was like, oh my gosh. She's like, is he going to run over here? She's like, no, I at least have tonight, so I'm going to bed. So she goes in the room. I guess she takes her shower. She goes to bed. And when she gets in the bed, she's like,
there's a stick in here.
Walking stick. There's a stick on my bed. And she gets up again. She looks at the stick and she remembers it was the stick that was in old boy's house.
One of the Fae's house. And that one of the Grey Lords came in and took out of the house. Mercy did not take this stick. The stick is just showing up.
It just shows up.
And as they say throughout the book, old things have a mind of their own. And this stick has decided that it's friends with Mercy and just wants to be around her. Which, it's like one of my favorite secondary characters, even though it's just a walking stick. This stick is just, it pops up at the most inopportune moments. It'll pop up on the floor behind her and she trips over it. Or it'll just appear in her bed. or in the front seat of her car. And it's just like, yeah, it's a stick that wants to make a mess of everything, but still be your friend.
Or be helpful.
Yeah.
The stick was helpful at one point. We'll get to later. But, yeah, so she's like, of course, she calls Uncle Mike, I think. And she's like, hey, so there's a stick that's here. He's like, just put it outside, you know. He's like, don't worry about it. Put it outside.
Somebody will collect it. She keeps trying to give it back throughout the entire book. She's calling Uncle Mike. She's calling Tad. She's calling everybody. She's like, here, take the stick. Take it away from me. And they do. And then it just pops right back up.
Comes right back. Yes. Okay, what happens after this?
She meets this woman who is working as a consultant for the police station.
That's right.
This woman is blind and has a seeing eye dog, and she's telling the police all of these wrong things. And Mercy is telling her friend Tony, you're paying this woman for nothing. She's really wrong. Like, Z is not a gremlin. That is a word that was made up in World War II. He is iron-kissed, so he can touch metal. He didn't do this. And this woman shows up, and Mercy instantly realizes that she is Fae.
She is. And not just Fae.
But one of the Grey Lords.
The Grey Lord level Fae. So she is really like just trying to make Z go to jail and be done with this shit. She wants to be done with it in general.
All the Grey Lords just want this to be wrapped up nice and neat in a bow. They will sacrifice Z. They don't care who the real killer is. They'll find the killer on their own, but they don't want the police or the humans involved. And Mercy's just like, fuck that noise.
Right. Even though during all of this, Z takes it upon himself to be like, hey, I'm not talking to anybody. I'm not doing anything. And then he tells her, or has a message delivered that you need to pay me all the money.
For the shop.
You know, for the shop. Like, he is like pretty much just cutting off ties from her. And she's like, what?
She is so
He's really mad at me. Yeah, she's like, she's a mess. She's sad about it, but
I know we've talked about in previous books, the last two books, that, you know, it's weird that everybody seems to fall in love with Mercy. Z loves Mercy, but like as a father. And it's such a different type of love. And it made me so happy that he, you know, he cares so deeply about her, but it's not that romantic love.
No, thank God.
And it's absolutely like a paternal love. At the very end of the book, he even says, like, I would have rotted in jail forever if you hadn't, you know, had to deal with all of this bullshit. Or however he phrases it.
He's like, I would have stayed in jail just to have you not have to deal with that, basically, or not experience that.
Yes, that way. And like Z loves her and she loves him, and there's no way she would have ever let him rot in jail, because that's not who she is.
And she keeps pursuing everything, despite the fact that you were blatantly told not to and leave me the fuck alone. And you know, she doesn't care. She's like, I don't care. I know what's right, and he's not gonna sit in there. And so she continues.
We're basically at the end of the book where human boy Tim reveals that he's the big bad all along, because he was using O'Donnell to steal stuff from the Fae. Then he was taking it from O'Donnell and, you know, trying to enlarge his dick, I guess. You know, make himself feel more powerful, because he was a weak little bitch.
Yes, and he had like some wrist things that make him super strong,
which is how he was able to rip the head off of human beings, even though he himself is a tiny human being.
Yes. He upped his strength. He had the ring that we talked about. And then, of course, he had the goblet.
He also had the deer hide, which he was wearing, which could protect him from his enemies. And that's how he was able to hide from Z and Uncle Mike at the beginning. That's how he was able to hide from the Fae throughout it all. He had their protection. He had the gifts. And I think there are a few others in his closet, but we don't need to go over all of that. Yeah. He just had a bunch of Faye stuff. And so...
No, and he used them in a combination just so to really manipulate her.
He kept forcing her to...
really hurt her. Yeah. He did damage to her. Like, so essentially he attacks her. The rape is off the page, but we know it happens.
It's kind of on the page because she's talking about how she's happy and she wants to please him because the magic of the cup. He's like, you love me, you want to please me, and
right. So there's a scene. So on the way, they're driving. She's clearly giving him a BJ.
No, she's like trying to
while they're driving,
hand job. Is what I
oh
saw.
Well, see, I couldn't. It doesn't say specifically.
Yeah, it doesn't say.
It says she leans over, and all this, and she's messing with his pants, but it doesn't.
Well, he unzips
it could be either way. Yeah, it's a mess. So that happens. They go because they're gonna try to find more Faye artifacts.
The walking
stick.
She
says it's at my shop, right? The stick is at my shop. So she gets him. That happens on the drive to the shop. They get there.
She uses the code that will alert Adam.
So she still has some of her will there because she uses the correct code to give the SOS, basically.
And there were times where she was like, thinking about how much she loves Tim. But she looks down at her hands and they're clenched in fists. And at one point he tells her to stop making noises and she realizes that she was growling. So it was really the coyote underneath that wasn't being affected by this much magic because it was a lot of magic. He kept making her drink and drink and drink and drink.
So I don't know if we were clear. So when she drinks the potion, the liquid, it makes her susceptible to his suggestion. So he will say, you love me. Yes, I love you.
And she believes it with her entire
yes,
mind.
I want you. Right.
Yes.
Exactly. So it's like she kind of knew she didn't, but she thought she did. So like her point of view seemed like it was waffling at one point. But, she's like, but I love him or this or that. So it would like reason away the problem she was having.
Yes.
And he kept saying, drink more. And it's like, because her body was like fighting it off, she drank way more than anyone else had ever drank that he gave. Yeah. Right.
He gave one.
So she was basically OD'd on it.
He gave one human man 2 sips of it and then the guy kills himself. Like,
yeah.
Mercy, she drinks like 4 or 5, maybe even 6 cupfuls. And she's still,
And he had her guzzling it because she'll say something or something would happen, just, anti what he wants. And he say, drink some more. So I'm like, oh my God, she is drinking so much of this stuff.
And one part that really, truly highlights what a weak man he is. He's forcing her to drink it at first. And he's like, what's the one thing you wanted me to know least of all? And she very truthfully says, I'm not attracted to you at all.
Exactly. She says it.
I don't want to be here. You're not that smart. You're not that pretty. You're not that attractive. I don't want to flirt with you. And he gets so mad. That's when he reaches over and breaks her wrist and drags her around and tries to show off to be like, look, I know all this stuff. And he wants to brag and be the big man, but she's like, I know more than you. Because he's like, do you know what this is? Wrist. And she's like, yes, of course. And starts naming it. And he gets so much.
He's enraged. So he did break her wrist and her elbow. And he pretty much crushed the bones in her arm. Because it was so bad that it wouldn't heal on its own. She needed to take more of the stuff to heal her. But there was this one part that I thought he was exceptionally cruel beyond belief. So he pretty much says, you'll be so grateful to me and you'll know that I think you'll never feel anything like it again. And he proceeds to say, when I leave, you won't be able to stand it all alone because you'll know that no one will ever love you after I'm done. No one. You'll go to the river and swim until you can't swim anymore, just like Austin did. So he does this stuff. And after that, she's crying. He's like, quit crying. What are you crying about? So this goes right into that scene where the rape happens. But he's ultra cruel. Like, why would you tell her no one wants you, no one loves you, no one? Because he is like the biggest asshole.
Because he's such a weak man that he can't accept the fact that a woman wouldn't want him. And so he wants to make sure that she only wants him. Like, he had his pride destroyed or whatever when Sam kissed her in front of him. And, you know, when she says, I don't find you attractive, he couldn't understand how any woman would not just like fall at her feet to be with him.
Yeah, he was awful. And I mean, after that, you know, that's where he squeezed her arm, at the already injured arm, and like kind of crushed the bones in her arm. And then, you know, she's like, part of me wanted to beat his head in until there was nothing but splinters of bone. But part of me knew I loved him. So she was still fighting him the whole way. It's like she want to do this, but yet I love him, or this or that. But the whole time she like, until finally she does it. She like attacks him.
Yes.
Finally. The iron bar. I think she took an iron bar
like
or something
crowbar?
and hit him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or she tried to smash the cup too, and the cup didn't break.
Cup wouldn't break, but she killed him. Adam shows up a few minutes later and rips him into shreds.
He does. So he's already dead. Mercy killed him, and now he's just gonna tear apart the body because out of
absolute rage, because he's a disgusting piece of shit who needs to be ripped up. Like, I'm right there with Adam. Shred him.
So after Adam gets there, and this is the part I thought was so sad. I marked it as so sad. So Adam comes, and she says it was Adam, but he was too late. He couldn't love me anymore. And then he would be so angry with me, I had to hide. So then she turns into a coyote.
And hides.
And she hides. She hides from them. And they're like, oh my God. He's like, Mercy. And she's like hiding and like cowering in a corner. And everyone's like, is she in here still? And they're like, yeah. And it was this whole ordeal.
It was heartbreaking because, it's understandable. You know, not only did he make that mind fuckery of nobody will ever love you, but also there's so much guilt because Mercy knew that Adam would be hurt if she went to his house for dinner at all. And she didn't really want to go to his house, but she went to the house because the mind fuckery. And like, there's so much guilt and so much pain. And there's so much trauma, like, in the moment. And so, she just wants to hide and cry. And part of her wants to go swimming in the river because he told her to go drown herself. And
because she's still highly intoxicated with it. She drank so much, and then she drinks more. So,
the Fae show up, and she's like, if this is given as a gift, it will heal you. And, you know, there's no way to heal her arm except for this magical Fae potion. So she has to drink even more. And afterward, the Fae, after seeing Mercy drink like 3 cups in the garage, was like, oh, no. I never would have given more if I knew how much she had to drink.
Right away.
And that's not even seeing everything she had to drink before they were in the garage.
Yeah. So that part before the Fae got there, though, something about Adam, again, it shows what a good person he is. So, you know, when they find her and he's like trying to coax her out. And she's not moving. And then Daryl says, well, you could call her. And he's like, are you fucking kidding me? I would not do that to her. You know, he's like, looking at him like he lost his mind. Like, I am not doing that.
I'm not going to control her. Here. She was just being controlled. She needs to make the choice herself. She needs to come to me of her own volition. And that proves what a wonderful man Adam is.
Yeah.
He is the complete opposite of the piece of shit. And he is a true man. Tim is a weak piece of shit.
Yes. But it was sad though, like, you know, she didn't want to drink from the cup again. She didn't want to. And he's like, man, I hope you don't hate me after this. Because he did make her drink from the cup because they knew that her, you know, so when Sam came, you know, he said, no, this cannot be healed. You know what I mean? There's
not with 100 bolts and no.
So the only choice was to accept this stuff that the Fae had given and let her heal, or, which was against what she wanted. So she was kind of forced to drink that again. But he was like, I am so sorry. Please don't hate me. But this is going to heal you, So that was not fun.
No.
But what are you going to do?
Exactly. And I feel like eventually Mercy would forgive him for that, because she would rather have a healed arm than no arm at all. Like, she's a mechanic.
Yeah, because it would be useless. Yeah. It would be useless. So they get her back and she goes to sleep, basically. They get her back to the house, like skipping all the stuff, because we already seen the video. So the Fae saw the video, agreed to let them keep some of the Fae items to prove what happened, of course, because they would have said some other bullshit if they didn't have any proof. So then they get her back. She wakes up and, here we go. So we have several more days of her being sad.
Well, she's purging it. She's still kind of off in fairyland.
She's vomiting up.
But she feels so guilty. She feels so horrific. She's still so traumatized that she crawls on the floor to be more submissive than Ben. She hides behind the bed. When Adam shows up in the bedroom, she, tries to be submissive and weak around him. And she's terrified that he hates her. And she's still thinking about going swimming in the lake. She's still thinking about it. And so then she has a hero in an unlikely place.
And this is the part where I really my opinion of Ben changed on a dime after this scene.
I think for everybody, yes.
Yes. So Ben he is very low on the totem pole, but he stood up to Adam and said what he needed to say to get him to understand.
Yes.
I'm sure it was very terrifying for him to do that.
Absolutely.
With the state that Adam was in.
It's hard to stand up to any alpha, and it's hard to, be vulnerable when you've been abused. And Adam is not in a very sane headspace.
No, because all he can think is, she is scared of me. That's what's coming out of his mouth. And, Ben is like, okay, just stop. Listen to what I'm saying to you. And, he pretty much says, you have to see this from her point of view. She did these things, she's blaming herself. And then he basically throws the gauntlet down. Like, do you love her or not? Do you want to be with her or not?
Yeah, because you can't walk away from her right now. She's not scared of you. She's full of guilt and shame. And she's scared of life. And she's scared of all of these other things. And, you need to be here for her now more than ever.
And he stayed. He did stay. And I think he realized what was what. But in the end, he's like, something came up. He had to go. Right. The video got released or something. Like, part of the video of him ripping that guy up got
to Congress.
Released.
So it looked like a werewolf.
Yes.
Just an unprovoked werewolf attack.
A random attack. Right. So they had to take the full video and do some other stuff. And before he goes, he's like, I meant what I said. No running. I'm going here. I will be back, and you better be
and
here.
If you're not, I will chase you down.
Right. So you better be here when I get back. And she just kind of looks at him. He looks at her. He leaves. He's like, fine, but I'll be back, lady. Don't go anywhere. She doesn't. After that, she kind of had a pamper day, I guess. And then, of course, she spent the day to herself.
Just kind of
sleeping. And then what happens? Oh, she goes on a walk as a coyote with Warren. Warren goes on a walk with her.
She meets Austin Summers, who killed himself because he drank the 2 sips of the potion. He's the older brother of one of the guys who jumped Jesse. So now Mercy's going to go after the guys who jumped Jesse because Adam can't do it or he will kill them. And then the Fae come back. The seahorse, seaweed Fae guy. I can't think of his name. He shows up in her garage and tries to eat her because he wants to eat her. But Z steps in and saves her, thank God. And he's so apologetic and just like, thank you, Mercy, I love you. And you're under my protection. And it's just such a parental love moment that it just like, oh, I love Z.
Yeah. Yeah, I felt like, honestly, from day one, though, I felt that was a parental
absolutely. Yeah.
type thing. Like, I don't think, which was refreshing against all of the other love that Mercy has to deal with. So far, we've sorted out in this book, one down, one is out. It looks like she has made a choice. She has made a choice, because at the very end of this
Last
book,
page.
he comes back, and, she's in the shower. She comes out. He's in there with the walking stick, and they're talking, and she's like, kind of makes her choice by like taking her shirt off or something.
Yes.
And she throws it on the floor. The last sentence is, in answer, I pulled the t-shirt over my head and dropped it on the floor. Now, after this, I was like, okay, I just have to jump into the next book, because I remember she said it. The author said that Iron Kissed and Bone Crushed are meant to be one book, like a clear continuation. There's no break. And it is. We pretty much get a repeat of this last scene.
Yeah.
Like, the last couple pages are repeated. And I'm not going to tell you what happens. But
I remember. I love it so much.
I'm like, Adam is so great because of how he treats her in that moment. But such a good book, y'all. Such a good series.
Yeah. Out of these first 3 books, is this your favorite or least favorite?
Well, I think, honestly, the Tim stuff was really hard.
It was hard.
I liked that we got to sort out the Samuel situation. So that, like, gives us the thumbs up. I like that she has decided she wants Adam. That is what those are the 2 things that make this book great. And I like the relationship she has with, Uncle Mike and Z. Those are the things that make this book memorable for me. I have tried to forget the Tim stuff, because I did not remember at the beginning that's what was in this book. So because of that, I don't think it's my favorite. I think Bloodbound was better to me than this book, but I like the events, the notable events that that start the change of relationship in this book.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Basically on the same page as you. There's so many good parts of this book that I really like. Tim is absolutely the worst villain we have seen. It is so heartbreaking, and just like Mercy dealing with that trauma is so heartbreaking that it's kind of hard to read. But actually, I think Moon Called is still my favorite. I like, out of these 3 books that we've read so far, the first 3, I think I still like Moon Called the best. But no, like, I like that she's picking Adam. I like that Adam is moving in on her. I like that fight scene with the Fae. Like, I love so many aspects of this book. It's just that I love this series so much. And there are parts of every single book that I love, and there's parts of the books that I don't necessarily love, but yeah. Yeah,
and I'm wondering, like, I'm trying to remember the villain or what happens in the next book, and like, it's been so long, it's like I don't really remember every single detail until I come upon it, and I'm like, oh yeah. So I'm curious, because I know there were a couple more villains that I didn't really care for, but I'm trying to remember. I feel like, at least at the beginning anyway, the villain just keeps getting leveled up with every book. And I'm like, wow, was Patricia Briggs in a dark spot when she wrote this book? Because I'm like, my God, it was bad. So I'm like, well, what happens in Bone Cross? I'm trying to remember what happens. And I'm like,
I don't really remember. I think they're ghosts, but I don't. I have the hardback.
Because we also... Yeah, we show. If you guys can see the video we're showing, you might want to come on over to Patreon. Okay, anyway, I'm excited to get into Bone Cross, to be honest, because I went ahead and read the first chapter because I'm like, ooh, and I want to keep going. I'm like, close the book.
It's so hard to stop once you start.
Yes, I'm like, oh, I could have just kept going and going and going, but I stopped.
It's hard to stop. I don't blame you.
I think we're done. What do you think?
I think we're done. It's a good book. It's a good series. I love Mercy.
Absolutely. Clearly, we recommend this. We spoiled it all.
All of it.
Hopefully, you're also a fan of the series, and you're like, oh, I forgot how great this book was. So, Yeah, so come back next week. Next week we'll be doing Bone Crossed, and yeah, that's it for that. But otherwise, be sure to join us on Facebook or in the Book Club's app, or now on Discord. If you go into one of those groups, you can get the Discord link. And of course, there are some special fun additions just for Patreon members that join the Discord. So if you are on Patreon, make sure to click that link for Discord as well. We're gonna shake things up over here at Shelf Addiction.
Yes.
We're gonna shake it up.
That's gonna be fun.
So yes, I think so. So that's it for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Take care of yourselves.
Everybody. Happy reading.
If you enjoyed today's episode and would like to show your support, there are a few things you can do. Head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review, or like this episode on your favorite podcast player. It seems so simple, but it really helps me out. You can share this podcast with other book nerd friends or on your favorite social media space. You can also join the Shelf Addiction Patreon family. For as little as $2 a month, you will help us produce even more awesome content for your ears. You can also consider joining the Shelf Addiction official Facebook group, where we talk all things bookish and more in a safe space. The Shelf Addiction podcast is a part of the Nerdy Maven Network. You can also reach us via email at info@shelfaddiction.com. Thank you for listening.